Welcome to the March the 19th, 1991 taping of It Happened in Grand Prairie. We are so very excited today to bring you our history tape number 142. And in this celebration, we're bringing you the history of Grand Prairie, of the past, but also the good things that are happening today for a very special entity. We're taking you to Navy Dallas, the Naval Air Station located immediately east of Grand Prairie, Texas, in the city limits of Dallas that we claim in Grand Prairie as our very own. We're so pleased to bring a very special group of people, and we're going to begin with center stage, the commanding officer of Navy Dallas, who is Captain George Krause. Captain, we're very delighted to have you back with us today, young man.
Very much, Ruthie. Pleasure
Yes,
to be here again.
You bet, yes. You're an old hand at this now,
I
aren't
am.
you?
This is my second time.
Second time, all right. And to my immediate right, Captain John Peck. And Captain John Peck is the operations officer of Navy Dallas and has a special title that he's wearing during the next 6 months. He's bringing to us, under his direction, the Blue Angels to Navy Dallas, and he's going to talk about that. And then next we have a very special young man in public relations, marketing, Navy Dallas, and Lieutenant Bob Tedesco. We're so pleased to have you with us.
Thank you.
You know, we've talked a lot, but this is our first meeting, I believe, and we're just so pleased to have you at the dais here today.
It's a pleasure.
Yes. And last but certainly not least, a very special young man to us, Mr. Walt Wagner, who is the editor of the base newspaper called the Sky Ranger.
Right, Sky
and
Ranger.
Mr. Walt, you're very special to us in that you do a lot of good writing, and especially the article you did about the speaker, and we want you to know that that was second to none. And we are almost notorious in Grand Prairie, Texas, after they saw the pictures of Ruthie Jackson of the 1941 vintage.
We worked hard at that, and it was an easy story.
You worked hard at that. Okay.
Just as pretty now as you were then.
Oh, let's look into Navy Dallas. You can tell that these naval, even officers and commanders, are very perceptive, aren't they? All right. Let's begin, first of all, with our probably ranking officer, the commander of Navy Dallas, Captain George Krause. Tell us a little bit about why you're here today and what the Naval Air Station is looking forward to this year in celebration.
Well, Navy Air Station Dallas will be 50 years old this year on May 15th. In connection with that ceremony, or in connection with that anniversary, we intend to have a gigantic air show and party in the October 19th, 20th, 21st time frame. We're also going to celebrate around May 15th the arrival back home of a number of units that were deployed in Operation Desert Storm, and we'll have other celebration as well as another item that we will be doing at that time probably will be the dedication of the Fugate Cemetery, which Lieutenant Bob Tedesco is here to talk about as well. We'll have a commemorative plaque installed at the cemetery and other things as well. So there's a lot to keep us busy here in the very near future, and we hope to have a lot of activity around the base, and there's certainly plenty to celebrate these days if you're an American military man.
Oh, that is wonderful, and we certainly are in a celebrating mood, whether it be the Navy or the other members of the military. Okay, let's go to Commander Peck. Commander Peck, you're in charge of one of the greatest excitements that could come to Grand Prairie as far as bringing visitors to Grand Prairie, Texas. Tell us about the Blue Angels and your role.
Well, as you may know, last year, 1990, we didn't have an air show because the runway and airfield was under construction. But this year we are going to have an air show. We were concerned at first that maybe the war would put that on hold. However, what is now going to be a celebration is going to take place on the 19th and 20th of October out at the air station. As you mentioned, we're going to have the United States Navy Flight Demonstration Team, the Blue Angels, there. We plan on having a wide variety of civilian aerobatic talent, as well as military demonstrations. For all of those who want to come out and see the hardware and the men and women that perform so well over in the Persian Gulf, please come out, and I'm sure you'll get a chance to look at all of it.
I'm very excited that 100-hour war has been completed, because that would have put a damper on our celebration for Navy Dallas celebrating their 50th birthday and the Blue Angels. If that hadn't happened, I certainly am glad y'all worked hard to get rid of those rascals over there.
Well, I'd have to say that the 100-hour part was the ground war. The aviators that went in ahead of them made that war, the ground part of that war, so short. And so that's why we're kind of proud of naval aviation. The part that naval aviation played is going to be on display on those 2 days in October.
Oh, that's wonderful. All right, let's get to Lieutenant Bob Tedesco. Fugate Cemetery. What on earth is the Fugate Cemetery? And let's look into your camera and tell us about it.
Well, the Fugate Cemetery, 5 months ago I arrived here and was told by Captain Krause that we had a cemetery on the air station. And coming from the East Coast, I was, history to me started back in the 1700s, but I realized in talking to the captain that we had a bit of history right here that started back in 1864 with the start of the Civil War, or the end of the Civil War. We've got about 70 Dallas residents that are buried out there. Many of the names I recognized on street signs out here, like Conover is where the Chamber of Commerce is located. Basically, we've got people that were buried there as early as 1864 and as late as 1951. We've got 2 known veterans in there. We've done some research with the National Archives up in Washington to find out that one of them was actually in Cuba during the Spanish-American War and served 2 years down there. His name was Harvey Malone, and his grave is designated there in the cemetery. One of the interesting, sad points about the cemetery is the fact that there's a lot of children buried there. About the turn of the century, I guess either from the poor medical or from, I was told in some instances, a disease that went through this area, that there's many children buried there that never reached their first birthday.
I see. That has been one of the exciting cemeteries of the past, and Grand Prairie had wanted very much to work toward a marker for that, but since it was out of the jurisdiction of Grand Prairie, in that it is in the Dallas County environs, we were not able to do that, and we salute you, and especially we salute Captain Krause for realizing how important that was, and we know that you're the stem winder behind this, Captain Krause, and what made you really take have really a love affair with that old cemetery and really want it restored?
Well, when I arrived as the commanding officer of NAS Dallas, I realized that there are a lot of people in the local community who didn't know we were there. And it's one of my roles as the commanding officer to ensure that the community is made aware of the contributions that we make to the, not only to the economy, but to the history and to the society of the surrounding communities. I realized at that time how precious Texas history was to its residents, and I wanted to seek the opportunity to both preserve that history and to highlight NAS Dallas's contribution to that preservation. So we concluded that it would be appropriate for us to erect a commemorative plaque on the site of Fugate Cemetery, to spruce up the grounds, perhaps even to include a new wrought iron fence around the perimeter of the cemetery. And since we were approaching the 50th anniversary, to combine all of those ceremonies into, I think, an appropriate display of our concern and participation in the preservation of Texas history.
This is not your first tenure at Navy Dallas. Tell us about that.
I've been here on 2 previous occasions.
Yes.
I was the officer in charge of VF 201 in the early 80s, and I was the commanding officer of another fighter squadron, VF 202, in the late 80s. So I'm thoroughly familiar with getting around Grand Prairie, and I can find my way to the market in just about record time.
And you have a special, I would say, liking to one school that you've adopted here in Grand Prairie, Texas. You might want to name drop that.
Well, I do. We're making steady progress there. Crockett Elementary School has been adopted by Naval Air Station Dallas. We provide counseling and babysitting services in some cases, but mostly we go out, work with the students, assist those who may need a little special assistance on Saturdays. We assist the parents in providing babysitting services on Wednesday nights so they can participate in parent-teacher meetings. And myself and a number of other sailors and chiefs from NAS Dallas go out and actually tutor children who need special attention during the week. I have a couple of children I take care of, ably cared for by Miss Rose Garcia, but they need a little special attention, and I can provide that a few hours a week. And I think it's like the cemetery. It's another way that we can add some value to the local community and highlight the fact that we're not an autonomous entity within the confines of the fence line at Dallas, but we go out into the local community, we participate in it, we're concerned for it and its history.
That's wonderful. Mr. Walt Wagner, newspaper editor, how about the Sky Ranger? Tell us a little bit about your role there.
Well, the Sky Rangers have been around since 1942 officially, but it's been around probably since 1941, although we don't have any additions from that time.
I see.
Coming up this year with the 50th anniversary, we'd like to put out a couple of special editions. And we're going to look for some unusual stories of NAS Dallas and its historical past. We've had a few already, such as Spider Webb, who was a pilot during World War II and was stationed out at NAS from 45 until he retired in probably, let's say, probably the 60s.
Yes.
And unusual stories. One of the early stories at NAS Dallas was when Wayne Morris, one of the pilots that was in flight training here, flew through the hangar. He was also quite a well-known Hollywood actor at the time. Robert Taylor had trained out here also. So there is some significance to the background of, not significance, but some interesting stories. Another story is of Davy Crockett. Davy Crockett was a commanding officer, Captain Davy Crockett of NAS Dallas. And it seems that at the main gate, there was a John Paul Jones who was the seaman.
Great.
And there was some presumptuous guy trying to get aboard the base at the time, and they said, "Who's your commanding officer?" And he says, "Davy Crockett." And he says, "You're just being smart with me." He says, "Who are you?" He says, "I'm Seaman John Paul Jones." He says, "I want to see the commanding officer." So there are interesting stories.
You bet.
That have gone on out there. And we're going to try to, if anyone knows of these stories, if they'd get to me as the editor, I'd sure like to pursue them.
All right, do you have a magic telephone number?
Yes, it's 266-6140 or 6141.
Oh, that's wonderful. Now, Walt, I believe you're a retiree. Tell us a little bit about your career and when you retired and why.
Well, I came to NAS Dallas in '74, but I've been in the TAR Command, well, it was for 18 years. I did 4 years regular Navy, and I'm retiring out of here in 1980, as a senior chief journalist.
So now you're back with doing newspaper articles for the Sky Ranger, right?
Strictly newspaper articles, yes.
That is wonderful. All right, now let's get to Commander John Peck one more time. With the Blue Angels coming to Grand Prairie and in the confines of Navy Dallas, how would we get invitations to come to that? How will we get passes? How will you facilitate all of the people that will want to come on the base or nearby to get in on all this good stuff?
Well, first of all, it's absolutely free to the public. Parking and admission is no charge. You can come to the air. We take pride in the fact that you can come to the air show with a dime in your pocket and have an entertaining day and go home with that same dime in your pocket. But the crowds are extensive for those very reasons. In 1989, we had the Blue Angels here, and we had quite a crowd come out. In fact, if you tried to come past, say, noontime, it was a little difficult to get near the air station. So I recommend that you bring your neighbors and your family and come out early and make a day of it. We'll have entertainment from very early in the morning to well after 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's kind of like a day-long entertainment event for the family, and that's what we recommend you do. Come out early and stay late.
And all day singing and dinner on the ground and all of that good stuff.
Absolutely.
All right. Now let's get back to Lieutenant Bob. On the Fugate Cemetery, are you going to have a special ceremonial time that say that the members of families that have people buried there can come in, or can just the general public come to the dedication?
general public's welcome, and that's one reason why we're going to be able to have the marker in the first place. The marker has to be readily accessible to the public. The only problem that they'll have is just notifying our office, and they can call us at that number that Walt works at. It's 266-6140, and we'll have somebody available to take them out and show them the cemetery. I've been working closely with Mr. Joe Rice, the president of the Dallas Historical Commission, and also Frances James, who you probably know is better known as the cemetery lady.
Yes.
And according to them, we have quite a find out there. The preservation of that cemetery, just the fact that it's located on the Naval Air Station, and it's just in very good shape. And we're just going to have, probably in September, we're looking at about 6 months to get the marker engraved. We don't anticipate any problems as far as getting it authorized from Austin for the actual dedication, but figure about 6 months. So we're looking maybe just about the time the air show rolls around us having a dedication. We'll have a color guard and representatives from the Army and the Navy and the Air Force out there, as well as local community people like yourself.
All right, now, would you like, this is a very good opportunity for a commercial. If you need any further funds, like to put up the fence, to do any more money on the marker, why don't you look right out into your camera and tell them where they can send the money?
Sure, it's to All Faiths Chapel. That's our chapel on the base. Just make it out to that, to whatever amount that you wish, and make sure your name's on it and your address so that we can give you a let you know that we're appreciative, and we'll send you a letter back knowing that we received it, and we'll welcome you out to the dedication. We'll notify you as soon as we can.
All Faiths Chapel, give them the address.
The All Faiths Chapel, Naval Air Station, Dallas, Texas, 75211.
-9501.
Oh, that's great. Got to get all these zips in there now that we have the extended zips. All right. Now, Captain George Krause, look out into your camera and establish a little bit about the different entities that you have under your command, or at least housed at Navy Dallas for our historic record, like the different groups that you have.
Yes, we have a number of different services represented at Naval Air Station Dallas. In fact, we're the only reserve Naval Air Station to have all the services represented. We have the Army Guard, a group which contributed CH-47 helicopters to Operation Desert Storm. We have the Texas Air National Guard contributing C-130s and almost 400 people to Desert Storm. We have the Marine Corps represented in Marine Air Group 41 with helicopters and F-4s. And of course we have the Navy with its one squadron of C-9 transport aircraft. That squadron recently returned, well, just yesterday in fact, returned from Desert Storm. We had a lovely celebration out there. It was a bright sunny day, and I think the weather matched our moods. It was just a wonderful ceremony. And finally, and I think probably most of all, in my mind anyway, we have 2 Naval Reserve F-14 fighter squadrons at Dallas. A very successful operation in that an airplane as complex as the F-14 could be maintained at Naval Air Station Dallas was at one time only speculative. Now we have proven that it could be done. The squadrons are operating very successfully, and we're very proud of their success.
Also, I don't know to whom to field this question. All Faiths Chapel has been built in the last 5 years, and prior to that time, there was a beautiful frame building that the Navy used for years and years that was made as a gift from Navy Dallas to an Episcopal church in South Grand Prairie, and it's been restored, and I'd like for somebody to talk a little bit about that, to put that in our historic record. Does anyone know anything about that wonderful little chapel? Like maybe Walt?
I knew when they put the fence around out at the base there, but no, I wasn't there when they I understand they just picked the whole building up and out there.
I think it was a congressman from this district, and I'm not sure of his name because this was several years ago, who became interested in preserving the original chapel as a historical monument, but was afraid to leave the base without any chapel to replace it. So what he did was, when the Congressional Budget Committee came to meet and discuss the military budget for that year, he inserted funds for a brand new chapel, All Faiths Chapel for NAS Dallas.
And it's beautiful.
It is. It's the best in the claimancy. And in fact, the investment in buildings in NAS Dallas over the last 10 years has been astonishing.
Yes.
Anyone who'd been out here prior to 1980 would probably not even recognize the place.
Yes.
We really benefited from the Reagan era. And also, we also benefited from the fact that the former CO of Naval Air Station Dallas turned out to be the commander of the Naval Air Reserve Force, and therefore in charge of the distribution of building assets and monies. So it all fits together in the long run. The All Faiths Chapel, however, was built as a direct result of congressional intervention, which allowed the old chapel, which was very beautiful and very, it looked delicate,
Yes.
to be moved to its present site.
And it was used all during the 40s. I know that when the building was about to be demolished, before it was, well, the Historical Commission, I was chairman in Grand Prairie, and I had asked for the building, and they said, okay, we believe that we can handle that. But then one of our state representatives, who is an Episcopal, found out about it and said, we not only will take it, but we'll restore it. And we knew that that was the best avenue for that building to go. And it sits on a hill out in South Grand Prairie, and it is just so beautiful. And you all need to make a little drive out there from Navy Dallas, or fly over it and make a little dip your wing at the All Faith Chapel of the past.
Prohibited maneuver.
That's a prohibited maneuver. We're in bad trouble already. All right.
That sounds like a good story for the Sky
Okay.
Ranger, though.
All right, I want to get to know just a little bit more about you all personally, and I'm going to start with Commander Peck and let you tell a little bit about yourself. We have about 5 minutes left on our tape.
Okay, I'm originally from Virginia. Grew up there, went to school there, and all the way through college. Entered the Navy in 1970, about the time Vietnam was starting to come on the downside. By the time I got my wings in 1972, Vietnam was just about over. I spent my career on active duty until 1980 and got out for a brief period of time, came back in as a reservist, and been a reservist on active duty up to the present time. And I'm just now finishing up my 20-year career. Plan to retire in the next coming year.
Oh, that sounds very exciting. All right, now, I know that Captain Krause, we've interviewed you and your wife previously, but in order to put that on this history tape, tell us a little bit about your family, redoing that for us, would you please?
I will do that. Although I'm the commanding officer of Naval Air Station Dallas, I'm mostly known as the guy who accompanied Judy Krause to Dallas.
That's it.
I also have a daughter, Elizabeth, 6 years old, who attends St. Albans Episcopal School in Arlington. We just bought a piano. She just started playing it.
Great.
My previous tours you're well aware of. I entered the Navy in 67, and I've had tours on the USS Enterprise as an F-4 pilot for Fighter Squadron 142. Been in the TAR program now about 18 years. I'm very happy to be here at Dallas. And it's, like I said, my third tour, so I know my way around.
And you're not nearing retirement, are you, Captain?
No, I'm not nearing voluntary retirement.
Wonderful, wonderful.
It could well be that I'll be volunteered, but not at this present time do I know that I'm going to be out on the streets.
Okay.
But maybe in a few weeks you can interview me and I'll be asking for a job. Who knows?
Oh, yes. Well, we may have you as co-anchor on this show. That would be an exciting thing, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
All right, let's get to Lieutenant Bob Tedesco. Tell us a little bit about yourself and look right out into your camera.
Oh, like Commander Peck, I was born and raised in Virginia, and I've got 10 years. I guess I'm the young one in the group. Got 10 years of military service and flew primarily helicopters when I started out. Flew off the USS Carl Vinson, did 2 tours there, and then just came from Pensacola, Florida as a flight instructor in fixed-wing aircraft, T-34s. And came out here and I'm enjoying every bit of it, and brought my wife Linda. We've been married about 18 months, and she's a daughter of a Navy officer, also a Navy pilot, jet pilot. And we love Texas. It's great.
That is great. All right, Walt Wagner, a little bit about you.
I'm originally from St. Louis, and I'm making my home here now. I'm going to homestead. We moved here in '74. I bought a home right in Grand Prairie. We live right across from the golf course and the townhouses there. And I'm going to try to retire again. After retiring one time from the Navy, I'm going for a second time.
Walt's the corporate knowledge out of the days. We wouldn't know anything about the base for one.
Is he the Navy encyclopedia
He
for
really
you?
is.
Oh, that's wonderful that he has that good recall, isn't it? All right, before we end our show, Captain Krause, I'd like for you to look into your camera and give a very special message to young people that may be watching the show about the importance of being a good citizen, how nice it would be to maybe someday have them in the military, or to just be a good citizen.
Well, as I've said before on this show, and I'll say again, national defense is not the aggregate number of bullets and bombs and tanks and airplanes that you possess, but it's the strength of your economy and the strength of your character. It has a lot to do with hope, the hope that you can infuse in the young people these days, the hope that your teachers and that your religious leaders and that parents can encourage in youth to look to the future as an opportunity to succeed. It is in the strength of character that we develop in our young people, the encouragement we give them to stay in school, to stay away from drugs. All the bombs and bullets in the world won't do any good if we don't have a generation of people who look to the future as bright and as a bright opportunity and look to the future for hope.
Isn't that a wonderful send-off? All right, we're going to have to get one bit of advice from Lieutenant Bob. Would you invite everyone one more time to the Fugate Cemetery happening whenever that happens, and how excited you are about that?
I just want to reiterate that it's not a military cemetery, it's the community cemetery. The air station just happened to build up around it, and we just want to have you out there if you're interested, or you might know somebody that was buried out there and have some information on. Please get a hold of us, and we'd like to have that in our pamphlet that we're going to be distributing at the dedication.
And that magic telephone number is 266-6140 or 6141. Is our recall correct? Okay.
It's 214.
All right. Now, Commander Peck, the Blue Angels, and our wonderful history commemoration. Let's go for it.
Well, 19th and 20th of October this year, we'd like for everyone to come out. We'll have plenty of hot dogs and drink to enjoy. We'll be able to take care of all your comforts. And as you observe a day of the fury in the skies from the Blue Angels and exciting civilian acts, and to be able to touch and feel some of the hardware that was so successful over in the Persian Gulf. So
Wonderful.
Come out for a great day of entertainment.
1 minute, one more invitation to the celebration of Navy Dallas 50th
Well,
anniversary.
I'd like to point out the fact that the drink portion includes beer, and that you're all invited to have some of that too, and that's going to help increase the festivity level at the air show, I'm quite sure, in moderation, of course.
All right, in moderation, of course, and also the May activities for the anniversary of
Well,
the 50th.
we're going to have an anniversary celebration on base around May 15th.
Okay.
However, that we are going to build into the Grand Prairie Western Day celebration also a day to recognize military personnel at NAS Dallas, and particularly those who participated so successfully in Operation Desert Storm. Those plans are now only being formulated, but Mayor McGuffey has been very cooperative with us and very enthusiastic in involving NAS Dallas in the celebration, and we hope to have something very shortly to be able to report to you about our success.
Wonderful. This is Ruthie Jackson reminding you that history is as we live and do, and especially at Navy Dallas. Thank you all for being here.